I'm Lori.
And I'm Mark Ruzeks. We been married 27 or 28? 28 years.
I was traveling a lot with my business and found out from a coworker that Mark had had a relationship with someone that he was working with at the time. We'd only been married 5 years, and we had a small child, and decided that, this was not a make or break in our relationship. We just needed to get past this. And so we worked together to, try to rebuild our relationship a little bit, had another child, and just kind of swept it under the rug at that point. We ended up moving to Maryland. I took a job where I was working full-time outside of the house, doing some traveling, and I made some connections with men that I worked with that were just, an ear to listen, somebody I could talk to. I justified there was nothing really wrong with it at the time because we didn't do anything that I wouldn't, want anyone to see. We just would go to lunch or hang out or chat. Looking back, I now realize that those relationships were wrong. They were hurtful to my marriage, but I didn't feel like I could talk to my husband, and I needed male companionship, and so I was really looking for that outside of my marriage. In Atlanta, I started attending church, and it was a church like I had never been to before. It was just completely different. I had been raised in a Catholic church, and I was just very down and just very unhappy and broken, and I finally was like, I don't think I really have it, because I see these other people, and they're just filled with love and God, and so I just broke down and cried. It wasn't in the church. I didn't raise my hand. I was driving my minivan, and I was just like, okay, God, I'm making this my moment, and asked Jesus to be the leader of my life. And that was a huge turning point for me. After a couple of years, I found out from a family member that Mark had been having a relationship with one of our employees. And at that point, I was like, okay, here's my out, because I know God hates divorce and I can't just leave, but if there's adultery, it's okay. So I called my pastor and I asked him, I'm like, I need your blessing because I'm ready to do this. I've been unhappy and I need to, move on and take care of my kids. The best advice I think I got was from my pastor's wife, and she said, be careful who you share this with, because you don't know, what God's going to do. And she's like, you don't want to have to explain things. If you and God work this out, you don't need to have to explain it to everybody, why, and the details and everything else. And she said, just be still and just wait on God. And so that's what I tried to do. And he worked it out.
You didn't go out looking for an affair. It's not what happens. You don't do that. It was something that materialized and happened over time. This particular relationship started at work again. I really didn't even care that much for the the person. It was just something that I was doing. But you don't really realize the hurt and all the spiral down where it's going to happen from this until it's already happened. Lori discovered the relationship and found out. So I got in the car and drove to Florida, a couple of friends of mine. And on the way down there, I had been given the pastor's number. And so that I had only met 2 or 3 times. I called him and we spoke on the phone and came back from Florida to Georgia. Decided to meet with the pastor, couldn't stay at home. He let me stay in his basement. I didn't realize what was waiting for me when I got back there, but it was salvation for me. I knew God existed, but I didn't want to necessarily believe anything else. I didn't know who Jesus was. I didn't really know who he was. I didn't know what Easter was really all about. I prayed a prayer to ask Christ to come into my life and to actually change my life. Everything changed. For me, it was dramatic. It really was.
Well, I think a lot of people, seek outside attention out of their relationship, not always physical. And I think that the world says it's okay to flirt and it's okay, to have friends of the opposite sex that you hang out with or whatever. But I really believe that when you just open that door a tiny bit, if it's contacting an old ex on Facebook, or just, having that lunch with the male or female coworker and doing those kind of things, putting yourself in a situation where you could possibly slip. You know, we don't want to admit that we're weak, but if we just protect ourselves from any of those temptations and just don't even go there to begin with, I think that, you know, you can protect your marriage. I think that we have rebuilt the trust as far as, you know, could this ever happen again? I want to believe that it couldn't, and but I don't think it's impossible. But because we do kind of safeguard and we don't allow ourselves to be in those situations where we could maybe be weak, I think that we have a little extra protection. You can forgive and you can move on and rebuild trust, and only by the grace of God. I mean, have we been able to do that? I don't think we could do it on our own.
To be with Lori, a woman who truly has forgiven all that has happened in our relationship, it's just it's an overwhelming feeling. The ability for someone to forgive in this deep of a relationship with that deep of a hurt is overwhelming, and it's truly a blessing to have her in my life.